Sam, did you notice that? Okay, that's fine.
All right, so thanks everyone for joining. We are live today. We are going to talk a little bit about a big survey that GMAT Club just published for both GMAT test takers and MBA applicants, and the uncertainty around what's happening with the coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it. We have two people with us today. Nikhil is an MBA applicant. He is also taking the GRE, the GMAT, so a lot is riding on that. And Sam, which I think most of you know who Sam is. Sam is my roommate, also a second-year student at the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. And both of us just graduated, so we are still technically on the roll, but we are out. So we are going to join our jobs in the summer. And we are both a bit uncertain, but also a little bit confident about where things are headed. So Nikhil, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you.
Yep, sure. Thanks, Sovit. Hey guys, my name is Nikhil. I work for a leading nonprofit in India. So I'm going to take the GRE exam in the next couple of months. I'm going to apply to business schools next year for the class of 2023. I've been working with GMAT Club as well for the past 2 years. I go by the name Workout on the forum. So come say hi on the forum. Yep.
What about you, Sam? Do you want to introduce yourself too?
Hi, everybody. Good to see you again. Sam from Michigan, second-year student, and full-time, hopefully headed to Microsoft.
The keyword being hopefully there, but I think we'll be fine, and we'll get to recruiting in a bit. So just as an introduction, at GMAT Club we did a quick survey that went out last week around sentiment, around what people are feeling, and there's also a lot of different changes, which I will quiz you a little bit about, Nikhil. That both the GMAT, GMAC, which is the parent organization that makes the GMAT, and some business schools have done. So before jumping into that, we will. I'm just going to go share my screen where we have a few of our survey results. So let me just quickly add that. So we have two sections of the survey. One is the GMAT side of things, and one is the MBA side of things. So I'm going to start with the GMAT side first. And Nikhil, I know that you are taking both the GMAT and the GRE. You're considering both, or have you settled in on which exam to take yet?
I think mostly as of now, I'm going to go with GRE exam. I have done GMAT in the past, but I can provide some insight on that. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Both Sam and I took the GMAT, so we can talk a little bit about that. But I think one of the things that that sort of jumped at me as most people have said that their whole GMAT experience or their test has been impacted by the whole pandemic situation. And so that's something that I thought would not be the case, because a lot of people I thought were already done with their GMAT by the time I did the survey. But guess what? It's not. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. But I think what stood out to me a lot is how many cancellations there has been. So I know that these options are really, really big, so they are not like super visible, but I'm going to talk about the most popular options out there. So the biggest thing that people said is that they are trying to speed up their GMAT GRE prep process to make sure that they can get that score in time. Nikhil, is that something that you felt as well, or are you in another camp on this?
So I did not feel like that, but I having spoken to some other people who said that, mainly the concern was like talking to the admission consultants, they're also feeling like it's better to apply to round 3 or round 4 this year rather than the round 1 or round 2 next year. So maybe that is something that is in the mind of these people. So they are accelerating the process of taking the exam.
Right. And I also see a lot of people talking about just generally being distracted, around the whole situation, hard time studying during this, or just general uncertainty. You have talked with the people on the GMAT forum as well. Like, do you think that's a common sentiment, or do you think people are okay studying?
basically, some of these people have their exams canceled because of the closure of the test centers. And some of them may have to take the test at home. Some of them are not comfortable with it. They still prefer taking the exam at the test center. So that is a concern in their minds as well. And also the work-related issues, like, for example, I'm working with a nonprofit, and honestly, these days, it's more of a work than the normal days, reaching out to the people and stuff. So definitely a little less on time for the preparation phase. Yeah, still a little bit of the plans got distracted a little bit.
Got it. That makes sense. So I'm going to go to, this is like the most interesting part of the survey. I'm going to ask Sam this too. A lot of people think that they might need to score higher after this whole pandemic situation than they had to. So Sam, I wanted you to weigh in on that. Why do you think that's true? Is that real if you were taking the GMAT right now?
I was trying to think about this one. Maybe if they feel like people are going to be inside longer and studying longer, that they may have to keep up with that pace of studying. But I'm not sure. As far as, do you need a higher score to get into the schools you want to later down the road? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's, necessary either. So I don't know about this one. It may just be a general sense of anxiety about times, and then when you have that kind of bleeds over to the anxiety for GMAT or GRE.
Yeah. What about you, Nikhil? What do you think?
From my experience speaking to the students and the admission consultants, I think for this one, I think many students are deferring their admits to next year. So consultants were saying that will result in less number of spots next year and more competition. So obviously, if you want to get in with more competition, you need higher test scores. I think that might be one of the reasons, I think.
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure about this either. I do think that there is a very strong case to make for the GMAT being an extremely standardized test. And I think that it has sort of stood the test of time. For example, in the last about 10 to 15, back in 2002, the 99th percentile for the GMAT was 750, right? And now the 99th percentile is 760, which I guess is a result of people just generally having a lot of access to different GMAT prep materials and just scoring more. I think it took them 15 years to move up by 10 points for the 99th percentile. So to be honest, I mean, I see that as like the stock market. It's so difficult to increase that threshold. So I don't think the GMAT, you'll need to score higher because of this. And I think there might be a shift in school averages, like you mentioned, but even if you take the deferrals into account, and even if, like, for example, let's say that business schools choose to do hundreds of deferrals, which I don't think they will, but we can get to that later. Even if that happens, it's not like people will start magically getting better at the GMAT, or people will only get in if they have a higher edge. So I'm not so sure about that, but I do think this is the anxiety speaking on the behalf of most of us. But this is very interesting that people are sort of focusing even more on the GMAT thanks to this. Going to the next one, so asking people how their main strategy has changed, and it seems like most people say no, but some people say that, yeah, I'm experimenting with even more prep materials to see if I can increase my score. I think to say that here, though, is that a lot of people have more time on their hands right now, right? Because most of them are working from home. Some of them, unfortunately, are not working. So I think this has been one of the productive ways to get to work or feel like they're working. What do you guys think? Sam, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, if you can. If your situation, like Nikhil said, that he had a little bit less time with all the virtual stuff, but if you can, this is a great time to just put more energy and effort and time into it. I know that when I was studying down here in Florida for GMAT a couple of years ago, there were a couple of hurricanes that rolled through, and they gave us like weeks off at a time from work. And so that was very helpful for me to just kind of lock in and study, but little different scenario.
Right. What about you, Nikhil? What do you think?
I think as for me, the prep strategy of mine didn't change. I honestly registered for the exam already, even before all of this comes again. So I definitely had a plan in mind. I was just following it, but maybe since the exam date is registered, I'm just sticking to my plan. I'm just not going to make a lot of changes in my strategy.
Right. When is your exam date?
May last week.
And that's a GRE exam?
That's a GRE exam. Yeah, I registered for the test center, but looks like I'm gonna take it at home now.
Okay, that makes sense. I have a lot of questions for you about that, but I'm gonna save it for the end. Okay, that's awesome. Yep. Go to the next one. This is the last GMAT question that we're gonna look at today, and this one is sort of mixed, but it's basically asking whether you would pick the test center or GMAT at home, right? So just for the viewers, the GMAT at home is like this. Nikhil, do you want to introduce GMAT at home? I'd love to know because I think you know more than me.
Sure. I think it's not implemented yet. They said they're gonna come back with the date sometime in the middle of April. So it's still not there. They might gonna open the dates probably in the middle of April or something.
Right.
So basically, you can take the test at home. There is no analytical writing assessment section, I guess, in the home version of the exam, and it's also gonna cost less compared to the taking test at the test center.
Do we know how much is it gonna cost? Is it gonna cost significantly less?
I don't think they have mentioned any. They just said it's gonna cost less. So I don't know.
Got it. So no AWA, but everything else stays the same?
Yep, exactly.
And then there's a proctor situation, right? So there will be somebody watching you virtually while you take the test. Do you know a little bit about that?
So you have to register with ProctorU. If I'm not wrong, it's proctoru.com or something. Once you register for that, you're gonna find the available time slot. You're not gonna pick your own time slot. You just pick from available slots on a specific date, and then right before the exam, the proctor is gonna make sure that your room is in like test center conditions, like nobody is coming over. It's in a quiet environment. There are no mirrors, something like that. Funny things. They just want to make sure all of this is there, and then they're gonna start the exam.
Right. So Sam, what would you have done if you had this situation? Like you could have taken I know you had a rough relationship with the GMAT. If you had the option of taking the GMAT at home, would you take it, or would you wait till it gets normal and you could take it in the test center?
It's a tough question. I mean, it'd be nice not to drive to the test center, do it in an unfamiliar place, but then the risk is, what if something goes wrong, like your Wi-Fi goes down or your mom starts a fire in the kitchen or something? How do you explain that? If something goes wrong at the test center, you kind of, you're a lot more covered. I don't know, I probably would prefer the test center, I guess. But if it was at home, I guess I would have done it.
Yeah. I think the other thing also is I'm not really sure about how I feel about a proctor's face on my screen. So that doesn't sound like a great environment, to be honest. And I would much rather. So, for example, for those of you who have taken the GMAT already, you are in a cube and somebody is watching you with like a CCTV camera. So nobody is on your face, so to speak, right? So the fact that somebody is watching me in like very close proximity will make me a little bit nervous. I wish the GMAT could give us this option of doing like tests at home where you won't even see the proctor. The proctor is watching you, but you really can't see it. I think that would have been pretty nice too, but we'll just have to deal with it, I guess. By the way, there's a lot of people watching right now, so feel free to ask questions that for either Nikhil or Sam, or if you're crazy enough, you can ask questions around anything else too, and we will get to them at the end of the slide. So
one quick note. Sorry, one quick note, Suvik, before we jump onto the next slide. There are some Proctor UA experiences that were post-reading, all of those experiences, what I see is like you have to keep your hands visible to the proctor all the time. That is somewhat distracting for the users because the proctor in the middle of the exam might ask you for move the hands a little bit, and a lot of these minor distractions that might deviate you from the exam mode or something.
Right. No,
Yeah.
that is also like super strange. Like not so for example, a lot of people have very strange eccentricities. Well, when they take the exam, like some people like to use their hand on their face. Some people like to think like that. So I don't know. I feel like this is just adding extra stuff that wasn't necessary, to be honest. So if you have another question around GMAT at home, but we sort of dealt with that, so I'm going to go ahead and next to the next one. So we have the MBA section. I'm going to ask Sam more questions around this, but I guess the biggest thing was, by the way, we are looking at about 50% who already applied to business school and 50% are planning to apply. So that's a pretty even data. So right now, we are looking at both admitted students, rejected students, people who are still applying, and people who are also waiting to hear. And I guess waiting to hear are those who have applied to later rounds. So that's a good chunk of people as well. So the first question that I wanted to ask you guys was around deferral, right? How big deferral is, and it seems like most people are sort of researching their options, but at the same time, about 17% are definitely planning to defer. And interestingly, 16% have already matriculated, so they've already paid the deposit and they have already started to enroll in the business school that they got in. So I have a few pieces of information about how things are going to happen, but I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think of deferrals, already enrollment, people who are researching their options? What would you have done if you were in this situation? Sam, do you want to take a stab at this?
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of it depends on what's your industry and your backup industry that you're shooting for. And what you think, how long you think it's going to kind of economically recover. If it recovers from the fall, then you would be an MBA when potentially companies would be trying to ramp up their hiring. So it'd be kind of a
right
time. If it takes a bit longer, not only may it bleed into the internship season, but then also all through the fall when you're talking to your companies and your people at the companies, there's just going to be a ton of uncertainty. And so that uncertainty will probably limit options and increase competition for those same options. So I don't know. That's a tough one. If I was in this situation and I could defer and the school accepted it, if things continue the way they are, I probably would take that just to be safe. But I don't think schools are going to offer that to too many people. I mean, they're going to want to make money too. So.
Yeah, that's sort of my feeling as well. I think schools just do not have the have the resources to be able to say that, oh, you 100 guys, we can just defer all of you. That's totally fine. I don't think that can happen. But Nikhil, I'd love to know from you too, like what are you thinking and where is the forum at? So I'd love to know about that as well.
Sure, definitely. So from the perspective of an applicant who is going to apply to schools next year, I'm not changing any of my plans. I hope the situation will get better. So if I'm going to apply to schools next year, I'm still going to go ahead and apply. So from talking to a few of the current students on the forum, I see some of them are definitely discussing their plans to defer their admits to next year, and some of them have already paid their deposits and still considering deferring admits. So it's a tricky situation, I guess. I don't know. There is one plan or anything. People are going to go ahead with what they think is the best for them, I guess.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And then I think if you did have the option to defer, for example, let's say things work out and schools say that, yeah, you know what, sure, go ahead, defer. I'm still not sure whether deferring is a great idea, to be honest, because first of all, you would not be able to guess how the market will be 2 years from now. And I think the markets have already started to recover in some areas, and for example, in Asia, a lot of markets have started to become open, and I think both Europe and the US is going to follow suit. I'm not sure if we have hit the plateau yet, but maybe soon enough. And so I think being in the business school shelter for 2 years before you go out and you start actually working, I think that's a huge thing. I think that's probably something that is going to be better for most people applying to school today. So going to the next one, it's
One
talking
quick note,
about
so wait,
recruit.
sorry, just
Yeah, go
one quick note from what I've been seeing on the forum. The schools have been a little clever in this. They are only offering the deferral option only if you're not able to get the visa to the country. So I don't know how they're gonna find if somebody is able to get visa or no, but it's like a conditional deferral, I guess. But I'm not sure how the implementation details of that will work.
Right, right. No, that makes sense. I also think that if you don't get the visa, right, for example, then there is no way for you to go. So for the school, then it becomes a question of, do we reject this person based on their visa, or do we defer them? And then the deferral is the only option because um, you don't want to come up as a school which sort of rejected someone because their visa didn't work out. Awesome. So, talking about recruitment, and we have heard a lot of like new stuff coming in and going. So, a lot of different companies have started to do a bit of hiring freeze. I have some information on what's happening around consulting and tech. But Sam, why don't you start? What have you heard or seen things going on in the recruitment front?
Yeah, I mean, I think with this one again, it depends on industries you're shooting for.
Right.
It seems like from what I can tell, just from other people's reports, technology is fairly good. Other ones are putting on a temporary freeze. I mean, I think the problem that I see is that, let's just say the economy recovers and in the late fall, the problem is that the plans are going in now, I guess, for maybe next year or the fall, or so that's, and how flexible are the companies? As long as they're building in some flexibility, which I'm assuming they would be, because this is kind of a unique time. You would think things would be on fairly solid footing, but it's just tough to tell.
Yeah, I have a similar opinion. Do have some real updates on things that are happening right now. So, for example, all the consulting companies that have already like hired interns before, they are planning to onboard them. So this is a little bit different from 2008. Just so everybody in the chat knows, where in 2008, when a recession hit, the consulting companies had already rolled out internships and they canceled those internships. But they told the people who got them, like, hey, look, don't come for the internship. We have frozen stuff. A lot of our projects have stopped, but we are going to hire you for full time. So it's a confirmation that you can get hired in full time, even though you didn't really get to succeed in your internship. This time, however, people have given out offers and they're continuing to give them support. So most interns are going to onboard and work virtually, which is pretty good, I guess. So that's where the consulting industry sort of stands. For tech, I'm not really sure. I haven't heard internship offers being canceled, but I think the bigger impact is for people who are still interviewing or for people who don't have a job yet. I think if you're in that boat, that's going to sort of be the hardest. And if you don't have a full-time job right now, that's then I'm pretty sure you would be significantly more anxious and significantly more worried right now. Nikhil, do you have thoughts on this?
So honestly, from an applicant perspective, I'm not worried about this right now because I have much bigger things before this process happens. So
Sure.
I'm hoping by the time I graduate, the situation will be a lot better than this. So with that optimism, I'm just gonna go ahead and apply to schools next year. But honestly, it's a little concern is there, but it's not that big of a concern yet.
Awesome. So those were our survey findings. Thank you so much, everyone who actually participated and filled in the survey. So it does help us, and we're going to send it to our partner schools, etc., so that they can actually see how the community is feeling. So I'm going to open up for some questions now. We already had a few questions, so I'm going to start with some of those. So some of us are feeling the anxiety, so that makes sense. So we had a question around, will the business school drop down with respect to taking in students for the next fall? Not really sure what you mean by the question, but if you're meaning to a deferral, yeah, I do see some schools offering deferrals. Like, for example, if you just could not get the visa, I do think there is a deferral option. But I think schools will also want you to enroll so that they know that you will come next year and they get some money out of you. They're not going to say like, yeah, you have a free ride for next year without any commitment. What if you apply to more schools and don't go there? Do you think, do you agree, Sam, or do you have a different opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think the deferral option, like, it seems really good. I just don't see schools offering it in mass to a lot of people.
Yeah.
They still have to fill out their student body. They're not going to crash their program for a year.
Sure.
So I just don't. So there's going to be a lot of people that would like to, but they probably can't. And if you get into a really good school, there's a question of whether you should even, with a potential recovery soon on its way. So, yeah, I think, I don't think a lot of people will have it just purely voluntarily. I think it'll be more reserved for people with the visa situation.
Right.
I think I have a slight, just one question before that. Yeah. So I have a slightly different question for you guys. I want to know what's your take on this. So let's say a business school offers online classes for the first 6 months until you get your visa, and then you come and join in the university. How do you guys feel about that? Would you guys prefer doing that or 1 year deferral? Because from what I have been hearing from the current students, most of them are doing online courses now, and it's not the same experience that you get going into the classes physically. So I would love to hear what's your take on this, Sam and Suvik.
Okay, Sam, why don't you go ahead and I'll chime in.
Sure. I mean, I approach business school as in getting the job was number one. So I wouldn't necessarily be worried about taking classes online versus in person. However, if the recruiting, the networking, especially if you're doing consulting, is all happening online, I think that can really affect that chance of getting the job that you want. So I would try and investigate how it's going to affect the recruiting pipeline more so than just the courses.
I have similar thoughts, but I also think logistically, by the way, I don't know if you can be enrolled in a school without an F1, or there's a lot of changes that needs to happen in their accreditation system. And I think it's more complicated than just join us online. The other thing also, like, yeah, the experience is totally different, but I also feel like that experience is more authentic of what the professor brings to the table and what the school brings to the table. I mean, sure, you can talk about the fact that a lot of courses and a lot of classes have like discussions where you debate with people. All that is great and fun, but it's a lot of money for debate and discussion. So I don't really care much. And I think good professors will leverage the fact that it's online and do classes that are just as well. But I'd be a lot more concerned around networking, going to events, and getting the job, because it's a lot more important to get the job you want than to have the best class experience. So I think I would be a lot more concerned about that. Yeah, does that answer your question at all, Nikhil?
Yep, makes sense. Slightly, sorry, one more before we jump on to the next one. Do you guys see universities opening more online courses next year because of all this situation?
Yeah, I think it will be a trend. It will continue to be a trend. And I think so there's a professor from NYU who is really famous marketing, and he wrote a long form essay on how this whole pandemic will change the education system. And I think the bar will get lower now that people sort of have understood that, yeah, you can achieve a lot of things without having to meet in person. So yeah, for sure.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So we had a question around 7 years of work experience in a consulting firm, prepping for 2021 admissions. However, with everything going on, would it be a smart idea to apply in round for 2020 instead? I mean, look, I'll let this guy's chime in too, but with the 610, you're looking at a totally different set of schools than a top 20 or a top 30. 610 won't get you very far. That's the harsh truth. So I would recommend retaking the GMAT, improving your score, and applying next year. It's also like, why do you want to apply to round 4 in 2020? I think round 4 in 2020 is extremely volatile, and you just don't know what's going to happen. So I would push it to next year. So currently prepping to retake the GMAT. That's a good idea. And anybody has different thoughts? Would you recommend anyone to advance their application from next year to this year, round 4?
No, I agree. Save the money you would spend on applications, put it into more GMAT prep, and get that score up.
Yeah. Are round 4 dates still open? Which universities? Lots of them, actually. It's almost like a new pandemic round for business schools. So a lot of round 3 has been pushed back, and check GMAT Club for more details. But I can, off the top of my head, MIT just pushed their deadlines to end of April and May. So a lot of them are still open. Is it a good time to give the GMAT around June or July? Nikhil, what do you think? You're taking it in May, so.
Yeah. I think if you're prepared, any month is a good time to take. First thing you want to make sure is, are you prepared enough to tackle the exam? I think June or July matters that lot. Maybe you can take it even in August. So don't worry about the month. Just make sure that you are prepared enough to take the exam and go for it.
Yep. I think Nikhil said it best. If you're ready to go, anytime's a good time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think things will become clear only after the first quarter results of major companies coming out. Uncertainty has become a deterrent. So, I mean, the first quarter results, just so you know, people don't. So the economy doesn't just move in terms of whether a company has made money or whether a company has lost money. It's a lot more to do with what was the market's expectation of this company to make, and has the company exceeded or fallen behind those expectations. So now, now because forecasts are going to be super low, so if a company exceeds those super low forecasts, that's good news for them. So you're right. I think things would be a lot more revealing when those things come out, but I wouldn't be too worried about that either. Is it better to defer than attend school now? So by now, I'm not sure what you mean. Schools will start in the fall, and I think things will come down in the fall. And you will probably have to do online classes for a few weeks or a few months, and then go to school and join your classmates. But I think it is what it is. I still think it's a good option, but I have a feeling that this might reduce school tuition fees. And I would love to jump on that train because I paid too much money for my MBA. Okay, more questions. Okay, this question, I'm going to get Sam to answer this. You think it is better off to do part-time MBA with a decent business school in top 30 and continue your full-time job and stay afloat rather than being unsure about the future? It's sort of like a financial burden. So Sam, what do you think?
I mean, I think all of that depends on a lot of things. You know, what school, where do you want to go, industry-wise, region-wise, what are the career prospects? I think I was more in the camp of the full-time MBA, bar none, because it provides probably the greatest access to career resources and gives you the best chance.
Right.
But without knowing those specific details, it's hard to say for any specific person. But I think the full-time MBA gives you the better chance of getting what you want.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I agree with that too. Oh, we got a quick Ross question. For Ross, can you switch to a dual degree after getting on campus, finishing your first year? Yes, you can. You can switch to a dual degree whenever you want, actually. So I had the option of considering the Masters of Information, School of Information School, but I chose, and ended up not doing it, even though I was considering it. So you could.
I think just kind of a add on to that, Damon. I did law school for 3 years, so it's nice because you get the dual degree, improve your skill set, you may get some money for it. But staying on campus 3 years when all your friends are going away after 2 and you're probably ready to work, it's that third year it's tough to get through. So just take that in mind.
Yeah, so Sam definitely pushed me against it, and that did influence me. But also, it's a question of, like, do you have the job you want, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you think that you don't have a job you want and the dual degree will get you there, sure, by all means, go ahead and do it. And I've seen people being super successful in doing that. But if you have the job you want, why are you paying more money on not doing the job you want? So.
And I think also on that same thing is if you're in the company that you want, but maybe you have to start in marketing and maybe you want to shift to product management, it's probably better just to do the year at the company, especially if it's a company that is very open to people, horizontally switching. It's probably better just to be with the company for the year than to do a dual degree with another year.
Sure. And often, by the way, the dual degree can have a lot of financial benefits too. So take that into account. So, like, for example, if I knew about that and I got a dual degree with everything being free, I would have totally taken it. Like a year worth of my time is definitely worth not more than $200,000. So, okay. So does doing a 1-year MBA impact your chances to switch jobs, streams, industries as compared to a 2-year course and internship in between? So I would say things are a little bit tricky right now as compared to like on a regular basis. But just from my opinion, a lot of 1-year MBAs end up having like an older cohort. 2-year MBA is generally for people who are switching their career, switching their job, switching their industries. So they are people who would really want to bank on that internship. So generally, I think the 2-year MBA is probably better. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I agree. I think 1 year, I think anything like this increases your chances, but I think the 2-year just increases your chances more. And so you got to kind of put yourself in the best position to get the job that you want. And I think the 2-year puts you in a better position.
Awesome. So we are almost out of time. We planned to do it for 30 minutes, and now we are clocking in at 37. This was great. Thank you all so much for joining. I'm going to post the results of the survey to the main GMAT Club forum over there. I posted a topic, and I think it should be going to the newsletter as well. Tomorrow, same time, we're doing a session on business school rankings with Maria from Applicant Lab, who is kind enough to do a session on very short notice. So please join us for that. That's at 9 a.m. Pacific, so basically the same time we started today. Nikhil, Sam, do you have any parting thoughts before we close out?
No, I think I agree with most of what you said. And nobody knows what is the better position to be in right now. We're going to figure it out all together. So just see how the situation goes and don't change your plans drastically. Keep sticking to your plans if you're taking the exam. Probably, I don't see the need to change your plans drastically when you're applying to schools next year. So I'll go ahead and still stick to my plans. Yeah.
Awesome. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with that. And hope everybody stays safe and good luck with everything.
Okay, I'm going to take one quick question because this person is saying that I never take his question or her. So the question is, what can you say about London Business School? Their 4th round is on right now, and maybe due to the COVID situation. Yeah, so a lot of schools have extended their deadlines. So you can totally apply and maybe get in. I think the bigger question is, are you going to have the same experience as you would if you apply next year? So I would apply if you really want to go to business school in 2020. If that's important to you, maybe you're older, maybe you hate your job, or maybe you really want to start business school, just apply. I think it doesn't hurt. And the fact that it has extended deadlines, that means that not enough people have applied yet. And they are terribly short in numbers. So definitely leverage that. So it could be in your favor to apply, and you might get in. And then you can decide, do you want a deferral? Do you want to go? What's the situation after you get an admit? Which, by the way, if you apply now, it'll still take you a month and a half to do the interview, get the decision. So by then, the situation could be a lot better, and you could actually go to London and do business school. Awesome. So we do have to close now.
Just a few more thoughts.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just a few more thoughts on that. I think in one of our forums, LBS is still active, and we have some current students responding to the questions. So if you still want to know what is the situation at the school right now, you can definitely reach out to some of the students who are active in the forum. If you don't know who they are, you can reach out to me. I go by the name Workout on the forum. So yeah, reach out to me. I can put in touch with some of the current students from LBS.
Awesome. That sounds good. Thank you guys so much for joining. Sam, Nikhil, thank you so much for your time. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks so much.
Bye. See you.
Thanks.